Hey folks, Tito and Jeff Thitoff here with you for a CBJ Blitz, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Follow me on Twitter @ThatHappens. Lots to talk about today as the season ended for the Columbus Blue Jackets with a 2-1 loss to Washington on Tuesday. The Jackets just recently, end of March, they were second place in the Metro. They were sitting there at 38, 22, and 11, 87 points, and they moved into second place in the Metro division, which would give them the home ice advantage at that point with the Pittsburgh Penguins in the first round. What's happened since then? The Jackets have did nothing. Okay, Jackets got eliminated on Monday, even before the season ended. When the Flyers went to overtime against Carolina, Flyers were down 2-0 after one. The Jackets needed Philadelphia to not get any more points, and Philly ends up tying it up and winning it in overtime. It didn't matter that they won. The fact they got to overtime, that eliminated the Blue Jackets. And like I said, back on March 24th, the Jackets were second place in the Metro, fifth overall in the East. Now, remember, by the second straight season now, the Jackets have been eliminated with one game left in the season. Remember the Jackets when Rick Bowness took over, and the Jackets were in last place in the East. This was back on January 12th, I believe was the date. They ended up going 21-11-5 under Bowness, but in their final 13 games, they only had 13 wins. Last 6 games at home, no wins, 5 losses, 1 overtime loss. That's what happened to this Jackets team down the stretch. 6 straight home games where they did not get a win at the end of the season, and they ended up missing the playoffs just barely again, eliminated again. 1 day before the regular season ends is when the Jackets got eliminated. Second season in a row that's happened. The Jackets have been to playoffs 6 times now in 25 seasons. This was the 25th season, a big deal for the Jackets. They celebrated it well. Lots of former players came through for different events. But in their 25 seasons, they've only made it past the first round 1 time. That's when they swept the Tampa Bay Lightning a few seasons ago. So they've now gone 6 straight seasons without being in the playoffs. And they lost 6 consecutive games at home to end the season, which also the first time that's ever happened in the 25 years. Had this discussion on the radio a few times. This was the biggest faceplant in Blue Jackets history. And when I was first asked that question, I thought about it because I was thinking, well, it had to be a bigger one. But no, there's never been a team the Jackets have had that were in the position they were in there, second in the Metro, end of March almost, and missed the playoffs with this kind of a disappointing end to their season. They've had seasons where they've been disappointing, yes, but never won this late in the season. They were where they were at and had this happen with how well they played under Rick Bowness when he first came on board middle of January. Like I said, they were last in the East, and then they were second in the Metro, fifth in the East, and then they fell apart. Now, after the game, Rick Bowness had a lot to say. Very, very upset over the way the Jackets ended their season. He's asked a question about Aaron Portzline from The Athletic. I've told you before, subscribe to The Athletic. Best value in sports. Here is Rick Bowness talking about the frustrating end of the season with those 6 straight losses.
Rick, you've been a part of a lot of games and a lot of seasons. Have you ever been part of something that's as frustrating as this has been down the stretch?
No. And you know what? All you got to do is look at the stat sheet. 3 hits, 23 giveaways. Like, I don't know if I'm back, but if I'm back, I'm changing this culture. These guys, they don't care. Losing is not important enough to them. It doesn't bother them. Like, how can you go out and play like that? Should have done this about a month ago. But this is why we are where we are. This is why we're out of the playoffs. That kind of effort. Losing, you have to hate losing. I don't care if it's a meaningless game. I don't care. Show up and compete. 3 hits, 23 giveaways. What else you want to know?
Rick Bowness is 71 years old. He was on a boat with his wife down in Florida, I believe is where they were at, when he got the call and asked to come back and coach the Jackets. Will he come back? Up in the air. We'll hear about that in a moment. But here is then Rick Bowness also then talking about, these are very tough comments. These are very pointed comments after the game, a frustrating loss to end the season. I can only imagine what it would be like if they had lost this game to miss the playoffs. Their season was already ended coming into this game. Here's Bowness talking about losing at home.
I think even in the long history of this franchise, I don't think they've ever lost 6 games in a row to end a season at home.
No.
Is that worse?
It's terrible. Inexcusable. If they're not embarrassed by not only tonight, by that, they're on the wrong team. They are. They got to be embarrassed with that. Anything else?
So Bowness ended a few of his statements there. Anything else? Anything else? It sounded very much like a Mike Ditka or maybe Randy Moss. Next question. But Bowness then talked about how, look, the team was rolling when he got here. They went on a great streak up to second in the Metro. Then things got tough. Here's Bowness talking about what happened to this team when things got tough.
Because it got tough. Because it got hard. Like we talked about after the Olympic break. It's going to get harder. So everything's good as long as it's going their way. And now it gets tough. We don't want to battle back. And that's what's happened over the last a couple of weeks. That's all that's happened. We're going to change that. If I'm back, I don't know if I'm back. Don and I will talk. We'll get to that. But man, oh man, some of those guys are so lucky the season's over and there's no practice tomorrow. Anyways, and there's no more games. What else you want to know?
What else you want to know? Sounded very Herb Brooksian there. The way it's like you wanted him on the line again. Get on the blue line. Go. Get back there on the line. You're not the blade. Go again. That's what he wanted to do with this team. And he mentioned again about coming back. And if he does come back, he's got some ideas regarding the culture of the team. Here is Rick Bowness. Again, post-game last night, 2-1 loss to Washington to end the regular season for the Columbus Blue Jackets.
All right, we scratched the itch. I'm going to talk to Don, as we said from there on, right? But I'm just, and the players were told tonight, if I'm back, we're changing this freaking culture. And we are. What do you got?
So when Bowness came on board, it was agreed that they would talk about it again after the season, if he wanted to do it or not. My co-host Bobby Carpenter on Morning Juice Day on 97.1 Fan, we talked about this. We have different perspectives on it. He believes the way that Bowness is talking, he wants to come back. And I kind of looked at it differently, like, well, the way he's talking, I don't know if he wants to come back or not. We argued about that, not a big deal. Where we differed also was, I don't know if going public like this is a positive thing. And I understand, look, all these things he's saying, I'm sure there are things he said in the locker room to the players. These are not things about when getting tough, how frustrating it is, the culture. I'm sure those are not things that there are guys in the locker room saying, wow, never heard that before. But I question going public with it the way he did. Because going public like this with these strong of statements, is that going to make things better? Is that going to change the culture? It needs to change in the locker room, not in public. And that's just like, I guess I don't understand why these stronger comments are made in public. If you're saying these same things, and by the way, first of all, let me go back a little bit here. I love Rick Bowness. I hope he's back next year. I do. I think he's great for this team. But if your message you gave to the media yesterday is the same message you've been giving to the team in the locker room over the last 2 weeks, and it's not working, why? Is it players? Is it coaching? Is it culture? And I don't think anything you say to the reporters and to the public after the game, I can't see how that's going to change how the players feel. If you've told the players you aren't tough enough, and they respond by not being tough enough, me going to the media and public and saying these guys aren't tough enough probably won't change anything anyway. Don Waddell, who runs the Jackets, he was asked about the comments Rick Bowness made. He was on T-Bone and Tyvis on 97.1 The Fan today. Here's what Don Waddell had to say about those comments.
Well, I kind of knew it was coming because we were in the coach's office before he did it. He was not a happy camper, and nobody was. And so I'm not surprised. But if you watch his press conference, he's speaking from his heart. It wasn't like he was faking anything. He was speaking his true feelings, and I respect that. It may not sit well with a lot of guys, but I think it was something that needed to be said, and I thought he handled it. Like I said, because you could see the real passion in his expressions, and if he didn't care, we wouldn't have had that kind of conversation. Obviously, but he cares, and that's the biggest part. That from my end, he's very passionate about this job. He wants to win, and just felt that we back up. And he said, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, maybe that would have been the time, but Bones is a very positive guy, and he just felt like the way he got these guys going was being the communicator and positive influence on them, and just didn't feel like when we were in a playoff chase that was the time to do it. So I think the expressions that he showed last night will go a long ways for us as we continue to try to build this thing to where we all want to get. And that's obviously the playoffs.
So that was the comments that Don Waddell made today after last night's post-game press conference by Bowness. And look, like I said, I hope Bowness comes back. I do. I'd love to see him for a full season with this team. I'd love to see how him and Waddell form this team now. You got some unrestricted free agents, some restricted free agents, some decisions to make on the roster. And I would love to see how this team responds for next season. Waddell said he wants Bowness back. Here's Waddell talking about that.
Yeah, from my end, obviously, I will meet with my boss and people above me once I have that conversation with Rick. But from my end as the general manager, watch the work that he put into this and how he got this team going. I support it 100%.
So, yeah, he wants him back. We'll see if Bowness wants to come back. After that loss last night, and if you talk to players who, at the end of a season, and look, Waddell's 71 years old, and I think back to, other like NFL players, end of their seasons. Ask them as soon as their season ends, you coming back next year? I know you're 41 years old, Brett Favre, but are you coming back? Tough to say. A week later, tough to say. Maybe when you get closer than to the start of the season, it's like, yeah, I want to come back. I know you can't do that with a coach, but the vibe from Bowness is not necessarily the vibe that you will have a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month from now. I hope Bowness comes back. This Jackets team, again, 21-11-5 under Bowness. Much better than they were before that under Dean Evison. And Evison did a lot of great things here. Led the Jackets through a very tough season the previous season. The death of Johnny Hockey and the fact they got to, again, the day before the end of the season, almost made the playoffs last year. This year, looked great end of March. I proclaimed, yes, the Jackets will be in the playoffs. I'm not worried at all. Then they missed the playoffs. So, the Jackets, it will be very interesting to see how they approach this offseason and if Bowness comes back, which, again, I hope Bowness does. Hope he comes back. There were a lot of positive things this season, some negative things also. The goalie situation with Jet seemed to do really well. I love the future with him. Werenski keeps doing what Werenski does. Adam Fantilli, he's a restricted free agent. Hope they can get him signed to a decent deal. It might be a bridge deal. I'd love to see a long-term deal. We'll see if that happens, though. Other decisions have to be made, though, as well with this Jackets team. So that's it for today's Blue Jackets Blitz. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Follow me on Twitter @FitHappens. Jackets season over, but now the offseason begins, and hopefully a lot of fun there. We'll see what happens, what kind of decisions they have to make, and we'll keep waiting to see what Bowness decides to do with this Jackets franchise and see if he can actually change said culture.